Hello, everyone. Welcome to HangarReady. How's everybody doing this fine Saturday evening? Hopefully, some of you got to watch part of CitizenCon, at least the non-boring parts. And with me tonight is clearly last but not least, Jolly. How are you doing this evening?
Doing well. Thank you very much for asking.
And I'm all confused because we had lots of streaming problems getting on tonight. So we're running about 10 minutes late. Turin, how are you doing this evening?
Fantastic, thanks.
Numidius, what about you? You having a good time up there?
Doing great, man.
Great. Soulhawk, it's been a long time since you've been able to grace us with your presence. How you doing, buddy?
Certainly has. I'm doing good. Happy to be back.
And for his debut on the official HangarReady podcast is Frack. Hey, Frack, how you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
And Frack, for those of you that did not watch some of the Fighter Mafia's podcasts that colleague Josh ran, Frack is our senior director of fleet security and our guru combat pilot. So, of all things combat. I'd like to do a couple special thanks real quick to our producer and our production assistant. Go ahead and hold on. She's got to pull it up and wave. Yep. So, my wife and my daughter are helping us tonight. It's been kind of a rush to put. Somebody's getting in trouble later. Okay. So anyhow, back onto the thing now that I'm grinning from ear to ear. I'd also like to give a special thanks out to two new team leads in Atlas Defense Industries, Stavler and Grinnin Fossil, who both helped us immensely by putting together a lot of notes, a lot of screenshots and everything from today's CitizenCon to help us get ready for the show. So I've got a couple of things here that I noted real quick before we move on. First, it started on time for the first time ever, to my recollection. Do any of you guys remember it ever starting on time?
No.
Before? I think this is it in 8 or 9, 10 years of this. Opening with the original Kickstarter video, that was cool. It looks like they've spent a lot of money rebuilding a fully functional bar area in a Connie Phoenix. Looked amazing, but I can only imagine how much it cost. Although they definitely need to work on learning how to lav up people that are going to sit and scratch their chest. And last but not least, there were over 27,000 people watching on Twitch at the beginning. So, I mean, and then it went down from there. But was a really good, well-watched CitizenCon. So, Jolly, do you mind kind of running us through what were the different segments that they published for us?
They published out 7 different segments that we're going to cover. And keep in mind, I'll get to the 8th that they didn't talk about, but overall, the concept was to go over planetary pyro, more information on pyro. Bear in mind, last CitizenCon received a good amount of information. This is giving us more information, which is appreciated. A design brief, investigations, primarily a new mission for us to do. When it'll come out, we'll wait and see, but it looks interesting. It might be a really good mission for somebody who's got just an Aurora or a Mustang to make some credits and have fun playing the game at the same time. So you need a super capable ship to do these. That should help out folks a little bit, especially new players into the game itself. Third segment was the new Underground, which I was pretty impressed by. I called it a carrier on the ground and under the ground. It was really good, and we'll talk about that if we get a chance to. The Need for Speeds, that one is probably one of the biggest changes I believe will happen in the future. We'll wait and see. Lorville Redo. Bear in mind, I loved Lorville when it first came out. I made it basically my home planet. I'm glad to see they're going to rework it. I'm a little concerned about some of the stuff that's coming with it, but it should work out pretty well. Like I'll probably hit a building now when I'm coming in of a dust storm in the middle of the night, but that's probably not.
Definitely.
Power play. Engineers will now matter, and so that's going to be interesting. And talking ships, 2952, I won't add too much to that, but they've got new stuff out there, and obviously new ships available and a vehicle, a new ship and a vehicle available to purchase today. That's all I got.
Okay. Well, and the problem that we ran into with this show is there's just too much to cover in a single show. So we're going to try to get through what we see as the big ones this week, and then we're going to run another show next Saturday at 8 p.m., same time, same place, to cover the rest, because we think all of it was important information. But there's some information that we think is just hot off the presses that we want to talk about tonight. And with that, I'm going to toss it over to Frack, who is our resident combat pilot extraordinaire, and talk to us about the need for multiple speeds and what that's actually going to mean for us as it appears they're going to start rolling this out in 4.0.
Yeah, welcome to master modes. As they explained in the beginning, they have been trying to tackle the speed issue probably since the beginning of alpha. And I'll admit that I was a little bit down on this idea when the presentation first started, and I've kind of come around as I've watched it multiple times and taken really close looks at the screens that they showed and all of that. But, part of what triggered me was I think it was based on kind of a false premise from the beginning of that they think that fights routinely devolve to jousting. And I think that's true of beginner pilots, but anybody can go watch any of the high quality, highly trained pilots, and those are not joust fights. So at some level, I think they were trying to solve a problem that would solve itself over time. That said, it's coming. So I took a good look at how that might impact us and our training. But let's start with what it is. So essentially what they've done is broken flight into two modes. The first one is still called SCM, but they've relabeled it standard control mode. And that is as if you took your ship today and speed limited it to SCM. The ship's going to fly exactly the same. Weapons, shields, capacitor system, missiles, countermeasures, all of that. But you're locked at that speed. You can exceed that speed with boost, which works the same way that it does now, which means that it's a consumable. Looking at and granted, as they tune this, the numbers are subject to change, but they were using a Gladius, and looking at the video, SCM appeared to be about 221, and under boost, it hit 475, and it hit it pretty quickly, faster than it would today, I think, if you boosted from SCM. So during that period of time that you have juice in your boost, you're going to be able to kick your speed up to as much as 475. If you need to go faster than that, the only way to do it is to go into the second mode, which is quantum control mode. And quantum control mode now has basically 3 speeds. What you would today would be your maximum ship speed, which is going to be somewhere around 1,200 meters per second. The 300i that they showed hit just under 14, and that ship right now is speed limited at 1188. So you can just simply fly forward to that maximum ship speed. There's also a new mode called quantum boost, which allows you to jump at about 1/10 quantum speed in a straight line. And it's a little mini game where you have to kind of steer your ship and keep the destination centered to keep you from falling out of that mode. But with about a 50,000 kilometer limit, it'll allow you to jump to a destination you're trying to get to at significantly higher speed than you would fly to it today. And then the third mode is traditional quantum travel. The downside to this mode is that as soon as you switch into it, all of your combat systems are turned off. Your shields drop, your guns don't work, your missiles don't work, your capacitor system doesn't work, your boost doesn't work, and your countermeasures don't work. So you have to make a decision now on when you're going to switch into that mode. And if you do it in combat, it needs to be a very carefully selected moment. The spool up to quantum, if it's working the way it appears in the video, appears to be about 8 seconds. What we don't know is if you can go past that SCM speed in regular flight during that spool up time. If you can, it does give you an opportunity to extend while you wait for that timer to kick down before you can either quantum boost or boost. But it's going to put you in an extremely vulnerable position, both on the front end, and the bigger issue is on the other end. Because all of us now, when we quantum travel, when you land at the end of that quantum jump, you aren't going to have any shields. On a light fighter, that's not a huge deal. Those shields pop up in about 3 seconds. If you're in something bigger where some of these ships take up to 6 minutes to charge their shields to full, and there's people waiting there when you drop out of quantum, you got a problem.
Well, I think you've got a major problem potentially how they do this. It's they're saying that as soon as you flip into that I want to get out of here mode, that your shields go offline, your weapons go offline. It does sound like you are able to quickly exceed the SCM speed.
But
from
you
the
can't
looks of it.
boost.
But you can't boost, correct?
Nope, boost is off.
But you at least can, so if you are able to get out of guns range for, 15 or 20 seconds, it might be enough.
Yes.
But if you
Assuming
can't
you don't get chased down by missiles.
Sure, because you also can't do countermeasures, they said. So, I mean, this is going to be a major... Obviously, they'll be tinkering with it. They never get it right on the first try, or the second or the third in a lot of cases. But go ahead.
I think the people who drive the larger ships have the bigger problem here, because
I agree completely.
The smaller fighters, if I click off of SCM mode and I go to quantum mode, that's like taking my speed limiter all the way to the top. I mean, I'm able to front line or straight line, and some of these ships can get up to 1400, 1200, 1400 pretty quickly, very quickly. Some of your even smaller ships, like the Nomad, has a very good acceleration rate. It's going to be your cargo ships and your mining ships and a couple other things that you're going, that thing does not move on a dime. A Carrack does not accelerate that
At
fast. And I have a hard time getting my nugget around. If I want to switch over into quantum mode, my Carrack shields just drop. I mean, we'll see it when it comes out, but I don't know if that's really been thought through. I mean, I know what they're talking about with the fighting and the fighters and stuff, but these large ships, I'm just not sure yet.
Well, the flip side
their
of
whole segment, all of that talk was about fighters.
Yeah, but he also said that, what did he say at the end? We've got over 100 ships in the inventory. And I know, Frack, you and I had some discussion. I think they're just going to paintbrush this thing out because the equation is there. They're going to slap the equation on every ship. And in the alpha mode, they're going to see what happens. And I'm not going to – we can't go as far, I don't think, as hover mode and saying, it's one of those things that's going to go the way of the dodo, because they were pretty clear about it being in Squadron 42, at least for the 8 ships that are there. And some of those ships in Squadron 42 are big ships, so we'll see what happens with it.
Well, I think one of the things that you have to keep in mind as we talk about this is that, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, a lot of the big PvP streamers have a outsized influence on some of this.
I was going to say that, Jay. I think how much of this is they want to be able to get their fights in the frame when they're streaming.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is coming from that. Go ahead, Nam. I'm sorry.
No, that's part of it. But honestly, I think let's admit it is really easy to disengage from a fight in the game right now, and they're trying to address that issue of how unless you got somebody just cornered in and you got somebody with a quantum jammer there, it's very hard to stop somebody from really running away.
That'll be true.
But shouldn't it be?
That'll be true with this.
But the problem is that this is it's for a light fighter to, get GTFO is not going to change significantly.
Right.
The mechanics of what you have to do and the step by step will change, but it'll take us all of 3 or 4 hours with the new model to have figured out here's how you exit a fight in a fighter.
If that.
Yeah, if that. I'm just talking worst case.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest thing for me is going to find out what button I'm going to put that SCM switch on, because it's just another keybind I got to figure out. Yeah,
no, but I don't see that as being the issue. The issue is going to be the bigger ships. And that's, they want these big multi-crew ships. But they're going to make them be sitting ducks. And you're definitely, the days of going down and loading a C2 full of Valerinite are probably gone by yourself, are probably gone when this happens.
Yes.
Well, shouldn't it be? I mean, isn't that kind of beyond expectation to be going around in a C2 solo
Well, I
without a
completely
care in the
agree.
world?
I am
Yeah, but a C2 only has 2 people anyway. I mean, why should I have to worry to set turret and set condition alpha every time I want to come out of quantum? I mean,
well, but the flip side of that is this, as much as I think there's going to be a lot of yelling and screaming and wailing and mashing of teeth over this in the general community, it benefits us a great deal. This feeds into our fighter tactics more so than the fighter tactics of a lot of the PvP streamers. Wouldn't you agree, Frack?
Yes.
This is better for us.
This is going to impact the high-speed decoupled fighting much more than it does the coupled fighting. And it's going to level the playing field a little bit at the bottom end, I think. New pilots, the most common mistake that new pilots make in combat is overspeeding. And this is going to fix that immediately. And so it's going to take that piece of the learning curve away and make them learn, how to fight, because the speeds are going to be forced slower. And I think that all the people who have spent all of the time, including myself, mastering how to fight at really high speeds, that's going to be gone. And so it is going to change that bell curve a little bit. But it doesn't really change what we do significantly. I think we're going to be fine.
Well, not from an air group perspective.
Yeah.
If I could point out real quick, I have to note, if you guys remember the hover mode that flight mechanic changed that Turin talked about, it was a complete failure, and so they got rid of it. Remember the landing zones, landing lanes at Lorville and another base?
Those were awful.
It was horrible. They got rid of it. So we're trying something new. We'll see if it works or not. They may tweak it. They may dump it, but we'll figure it out.
I'm going to be honest, though. I see this for us as more as a positive than a negative. I don't, again, we're Atlas Defense Industries. We run, we do this podcast under HangarReady, but let's just be honest. This is a plus for us for 2 reasons. One, this plays into our, for lack of a better term, wolf pack tactics that we already are teaching, which we were, I don't want to brag, but we definitely have a good group of pilots that are capable of fighting in that space. But the bigger issue is it's going to benefit us on the other side with multi-crew ships, which we're going to get into here in the not too distant future as we start talking about some of these, power relays and things like that. This benefits us because we'll crew ships and we'll put escorts with our heavier ships. We've got the capacity. We've got, 100 people online on a busy Saturday night, and we're all working together versus another bunch of orgs that are our size, bigger and smaller, that can't field 10 or 15. So, teamwork is going to really, if this goes in as they're describing it, teamwork will be critical.
Well, I think it also opens up the gameplay that has been lacking, and that's the snare factor, the mantis, the quantum dampening that they put in there, but you really can't really use it all that much. Well, this gives a really good opportunity for you to use that sort of game mechanic.
Along with the hinting that when they start talking about devices for interceptors, that it could very easily be more than just those 2 ships. It could be every ship that they classify as an interceptor.
Well, and that'll change some of our tactics, but it won't. I don't think this is a negative for us. That's the honest truth. I think this is more of a positive than a negative, as they've described it.
I agree.
Sol, you're on the operations
plan.
You're on the operations planning side. What are your thoughts on this?
I really do think, in general, it hurts big ships. But for us specifically, the organization aspect we can kind of use to overcome that. I can see them tweaking it in the future to where the shield stays on, but the recharge is disabled. That would be a really easy way to balance it for the larger ships. Like after I saw this, I went and hopped in the Hammerhead, and standard power distribution, it takes 3 minutes for those shields to fully recharge. There's no way you're coming out of quantum into a hostile environment and not being shot at for 3 minutes. It's just not going to happen. If your shield stays up and the recharge is just disabled, that makes this a little bit more believable and a little bit more fun from a gameplay aspect, at least for the majority of the community.
Well, yes, I would say. Hello. Sorry.
Yep, you're here.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
sorry.
we can hear you.
Sorry, I had my mic off, and then
We had tons of technical glitches, but that's not one of them.
anyway, I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it gives a reason for, when you pull somebody forcibly out of quantum, whenever we have interdiction actually working, you got long range scanning and you're able to target somebody to pull them out of quantum, there's a window there where you're going to be able to hit them. Conversely, that's going to happen. That's going to affect, you can drop out of quantum short of a target, build up your shields and fly in. So that's just going to change your tactics because that exists.
I think it's going to be the surprise. And I think it's the instant that you get ready to go into this high speed mode, your shields, as they described it, maybe that changes. Hopefully it does. Your shields go to 0 immediately. And all you have to work on is armor.
But it's going to bring in scouting.
Yep.
If you're moving cargo or a convoy, you got to send smaller ships up ahead. All the things we want, ultimately.
Yep. I do not see any of this as a negative as they described it, other than, I'm concerned that this is a step too far for the community and as a whole, who have grown accustomed to running around in C2s and caterpillars by themselves. And they think it's absolutely ridiculous that they need to have crew or people flying escort with them.
I hope CIG can hold to their convictions on this and they don't cave to that voice.
Well, I think it'll be stronger than the hover complaint, which I think all of us were kind of on board with. The hover was just
Garbage.
awful.
That was valid.
Yep.
That was valid.
And
Yeah.
so, but they were trying to make it harder to land, and right or wrong, it was people screamed about it till they took it out. It didn't last 3 months before it was gone.
Didn't last a patch. I mean, it came out in a patch and it was gone on the next one, as far as I remember.
Yeah, it was
What they were trying to solve. It wasn't wrong to try to solve the problems they were trying to solve. Wasn't necessarily just to make landing hard, but trying to stop people from hovering in ridiculous positions and stuff like that. There's other ways to do it, but they chose arbitrary things like you hit this speed or this altitude and suddenly your whole flight model switched.
Yeah.
It was too arbitrary.
Well, it's gone, so thank God. So, Frack,
Yeah, but I'm saying this doesn't seem arbitrary to me. Yeah.
Oh, I don't think it's arbitrary at all. I think that guy was really serious that he said, this is, I mean, he had his serious face on when he said, this is in Squadron 42.
Yep.
Yeah,
they're not changing it. He said, in fact, I think he used the term locked in. So it's locked in to Squadron 42.
He flat out said, we have worked on this for years. We have failed. We have finally found the solution. They are all in.
Yeah, and
Well,
they don't have time. In my view, they don't have time to go back and build another one.
no. It'll be
it's,
nibbling around the edges. Will be the changes.
So Frack, what's your final? Oh my gosh, we got to look out for this.
Well, I don't think there is one. I mean, obviously we've talked about the big ship issue where, big ships arriving with no shields that take 7 minutes to recharge is a deal that we can work around with proper, tactics of an Orgar size. The piece we kind of glossed over, and I know we want to get on to the next segment, but people also need to realize that a big part of this segment of their presentation got into the other thing they've been trying to tackle for several years, which is ship archetypes and separating out the role of a light fighter, a medium fighter, a heavy fighter, an interceptor, which right now they are no different than a light fighter. And I think this same time period where they're implemented these changes is where they're going to start to separate out the characteristics of those types of ships, which is going to let us as an org look at, I'm very interested in they kept throwing in interceptor into this, faster SCM speed designed to chase down other ships and disable them, interdiction devices that are going to disrupt your quantum control mode. Both offensively and defensively, we need to not ignore or forget that that's coming too, because ships that people are using and that we're using, for ourselves and against us, that there's a shift that's going to happen with that.
I completely agree. I think it's going to be, you're going to flip the table over and everybody's going to have to get used to the new world order.
Yep.
And the people that are ready to do that are going to be the ones that are successful.
Yep. And the one last point is that, they said it's true. Turrets are going to become hugely more effective under this.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. You're not going to want to solo hammerheads anymore,
Yep.
Especially crude ones. That will be that definitely to me feels like a death sentence.
Yep. And when you look at, the Hurricane and to a slightly lesser degree, the Scorpius and the effectiveness of those ships now, and then you drop, the fighters that they're fighting down to SCM speed, those are going to be scary ships as well. And it'll be interesting to see how they balance that.
Well, and those ships are scary only when you have full crew.
Yes.
So,
well, you're going to need to, because all your relays have got to get looked after and all that kind of stuff. So,
not on a Hurricane.
But those are just 2-seat heavy fighters.
Hurricane, well, on a Hammerhead you do. But
No, I'm talking about a Hurricane and stuff. I'm talking
Hurricane
about
and Scorpius.
Yeah, right now, the reason the point that I'm making is that you'll need to do more multiplayer ships, and those will become very dangerously effective if you let them get in to, dogfighting range, because it's going to be hard to get away from them quick enough.
Well, they've been moving to multiplayer heavy, so not surprising.
I'm excited about it. So, okay. Well, guys, any other comments that we want to make on the new fighter mechanics and flight mechanics that appear to be coming down the pike? Okay. Guys, a couple of things here real quick. Do us a favor, like and subscribe to the video. It boosts it up and we'll get some more people watching us. Also, you can reach out to us with questions or comments on our Discord server, discord.hangarready.com, right there on the screen right now, or in chat. We'll be going through and picking some out to answer at the end of the show during the break. So we're going to go to a quick break. I'm going to have Jackie or my wife fix the camera here because I'm a little off center, and and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes and get started on the next segment.